Hi, welcome to the Storm of the Field podcast. I'm Mathis Odie. I'm joined here by my brother Quentin, Trajan Lewis, and Rob Odie. And today we are going to be going over the ACC win total predictions. And so we're going to start off with the Atlantic Division. So switch us over to the big screen. And so we're going to start off with Trey's prediction for Boston College.
All right, for Boston College, I have them going 6-6. I mean, pretty standard. Vegas has them at over under 6.5. So I mean, I really can't see how you could go wrong with that. Their schedule at the beginning of the year, you start off with Rutgers with an easy win. At Virginia Tech, I just don't see them winning there. They got Maine. That should be an easy win for them. Then they go to Florida State, and I have them winning at Florida State. Just because I don't think they're going to be too good this year. Then I have them dropping the next three to Louisville, Clemson, and Wake Forest, which makes sense because all those teams are going to be significantly better in my opinion. And then I have them beating UConn and Duke, which are two easy games to win. And then I have them losing the next two at NC State and Notre Dame. And to finish off the year, I have them beating Syracuse at home.
All right, so next we got Rob. And what differences do you have into what Trey just said? Because I can see here, so can everyone else, that you and Quentin also got them at 6-6.
I have them 3-5 in conference, 6-6 overall. Have them losing to Florida State on the road, losing to Clemson like most people probably do, and the major ones. I have a three-way tie. I'm not going to go into it for the Atlantic Division. I have Boston College losing to all three of those teams, in addition to Notre Dame and, like I said, Florida State.
All right, Quentin, what you got?
Trey, what did you have the Rutgers game? Did you have them winning or losing that game?
I have them winning that game.
Okay, I had them winning that game too. So I have them dropping the game at Virginia Tech, and then pretty much the same losses as everyone else. Pretty much, not that many games that are in the gray area for me. I feel like most of the games are either a comfortable win or a comfortable loss. There's not many games I would consider flip-flop.
I actually I have them at 7-5, and I think mainly the only game I have them winning instead of y'all is I have them winning that Virginia Tech game earlier in the year. And I don't know, I feel like Boston College probably has a little bit of an edge over Virginia Tech. It's close, but I just think a little higher than them. I think they're gonna hit that over. And I think if it's not that game they win, maybe they win against Wake Forest. We know what happened with Sam Hartman. He's not going to be there for at least a little bit with his off-the-field injury stuff going on. And so moving on, we got the Clemson Tigers. And this is going to be an interesting one because they're coming off a 9-3 regular season year, which is surprisingly an off year, knowing the history of Clemson, that they haven't really been this star-studded program in the past. And now that's seen as terrible. And so, Trey, you got
year without Trevor Lawrence, though, right?
Yeah, they got DJ at
recently.
quarterback, and a lot of people don't really see what's so great about him. They got Cade Klubnik, who some people think will be coming in at some point during the year. So, Trey, you got them at 10-2.
Yeah, I do. The only games I have them dropping is NC State and at Notre Dame. I just feel like Notre Dame is kind of turning into a rivalry for Clemson. I feel like that's just a pretty hard game to win, especially on the road. And then I also have them losing to North Carolina State at home, just because I think North Carolina State is the best team in the ACC.
All right, Rob, you got them at 9-3. So you think it's going to be a repeat of last year?
I do, and I think they're going to find themselves in a three-way tie with Wake Forest and NC State. And I was looking at the tiebreakers for the ACC, and I see these three teams. You go down straight down the line; they all are going to be 1-1 against each other. I'm just not very high on Clemson, and I think they're going to lose out when it comes down to the tiebreakers, which I think is going to ultimately come down to their overall ranking nationally. I have them beating Notre Dame, and I have them. My big upset for them this year is losing at Florida State. And interesting, I was just looking at Notre Dame. They are not in the ACC, but they have an arrangement with the ACC. It looks to me like they're playing 4 ACC teams, and I have them winning 3 of those 4 games. So,
And just for everyone watching, or for any of y'all right here, Notre Dame does count as an ACC conference game in the schedule.
I don't think it does.
It does.
And the teams that play have 9 conference games while everyone else has 8. I don't think that's right.
Yeah, that's what I heard somewhere.
I think they're obligated by contract to play, but it's counted as a non-conference game.
I was under the impression that it counts as a.
I have a feeling that our illustrious Mathis is going to have to do a
research.
Boston College plays 9 conference games.
On the next podcast, I believe Mathis is going to have to come back and tell us how his research showed that he was incorrect with that assessment.
Clemson would be playing 8 conference games without it. The ACC plays a 9-game conference schedule.
No, the ACC plays an 8-game conference schedule.
No, the SEC does. Everyone else plays a 9.
SEC.
Everyone else plays a 9.
I don't think so.
I mean, look at Florida State.
It doesn't.
They play 6 teams within their division and 2 from the other division.
I was under that same understanding.
Who does Clemson play that's not in their division or not in their conference? They play Furman, LA Tech, and South Carolina. I guess.
I don't think that it's a conference game.
Yeah, Notre Dame is.
I don't know. Maybe I heard wrong.
Because look at NC State. They don't play Notre Dame. They play ECF, Charleston, Texas Tech, and UConn. Those are 4 non-conference games.
Yeah.
Yeah. UConn has a similar agreement with the ACC.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
We've come to the conclusion that Mathis is wrong.
Yeah, I guess I'm wrong then. Can't trust everything you see on the internet.
10 points on Mathis.
Yeah. That's a bar. 1 bar for Rob.
Ah, dang it.
All
right.
I have Clemson going 11-1. I do think that there's going to be improved quarterback play. The only thing that I would maybe change is the Notre Dame game, and because Clemson's their front 7 on the defense is just so they're going to be so good on the defensive side of the ball. So I feel like a lot of these games in the ACC, it's going to be the defense can carry them, and they can just play like that, like just sustainable offense like Bama did in the early 2010s. But I think that the Notre Dame game just really comes down to the quarterback play at the very end of it, because if Notre Dame's quarterback, I feel like it's whatever quarterback performs better, in my opinion. Because I feel like the defenses in both teams are going to be very good.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make the same point about NC State.
Yeah, I think NC State's probably going to play a little bit faster than Clemson. I don't know that Clemson's offense is going to be able to keep up. I think that NC State has a better quarterback.
Yeah, I agree.
And the ACC has probably some of the best quarterback play in the country this year. Well, I mean,
go ahead.
Wake Forest, they lost their guy,
but he's probably going to come back at some point in the year.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Yeah. I'm really indifferent. I'm interested to see what's going to happen with Clemson this year, because sure, you can say I agree there's probably going to be improved quarterback play because you're having 2 guys compete. Obviously, they're saying DJ's the starter, but he has a little more he's on a little more of a hot seat than he was last year. And another thing you have to look at is Dabo had to hire 2 new coordinators. They lost their offensive and defensive coordinator head coaching jobs. And he hired from within. And so it could be an echo chamber, kind of the same mistakes they had last year. And so obviously they still have talent. They've been to national championships. They've done great recruiting wise. But some of a lot of the guys playing now aren't the same guys who have played in national championships. And so I'm not expecting a drop off from last year. I actually have them improving record wise, but I just don't know if I can see them going 11-1 in my conscience. I just can't predict that. I think 10-2 is probably the most likely scenario. I have them losing at NC State, who I think is a dark horse playoff team. Great quarterback. I think they have both coordinators and head coach and quarterback returning. And I think they're going to be a great team. They have an amazing defense. And so I have Clemson losing that game because they're also playing them right after they play Wake Forest. And obviously they've been a little damaged minus that because the Sam Hartman. But I still think that's a good team. I have them going 7-5 late. Also, that's a spoiler, but I just it's hard for me to see Clemson going 11-1. Could happen, obviously. I think they're just as likely as NC State or anyone else to go 11-1. But I'm not here to predict that. I'm not here for saying what a team could do. I'm here to say what I think they're gonna do, and so that sits them at 10-2. And so moving on, now we have Florida State. Trey, you got them at 6-6. Take it from here.
All right, I have Florida State pretty much at 6-6. I mean, everybody knows Florida State is not what they were in the early 2010s or even the 90s. The coaching situation at Florida State is just like really taken over that program and made that program a lot worse than what it should be, because most people can agree football is more fun when you have teams like Florida State being good. But I have them losing to pretty much all the best teams in the ACC, which I would consist of Wake Forest, Clemson, Miami. I have them dropping that game at Boston College. I have them losing the neutral site game to LSU, which really isn't a neutral site game because they're playing in New Orleans. And then end off the year, I just feel like Florida's a better team. Simple as that. I think that Florida State will end up dropping that game. So I have them finishing at 6-6.
All right, Rob, 6-6.
I have Florida State at 6-6 also. I have them going 0-2 against the SEC, LSU and Florida, and 0-2 in the state of Florida, Miami and Florida. So I think they're just going to have a mediocre year. I do have them, big upset in the Atlantic Division, beating Clemson. So I have them, I have Wake Forest, NC State, and Clemson. I have them losing to Wake Forest and NC State. But just another regular season until they, everyone had high hopes for them at the beginning of the season. They almost pulled out the win against Notre Dame, and then they just fell apart. And I think they're still another year or two away from competing for the ACC championship.
Quentin?
I have Florida State going 7-5 because I don't know that there was that much roster improvement that I feel like they're going to be that much better of a team. But, I mean, I feel like Norvell's on the hot seat, so I feel like at some point they're going to have to – the play is going to improve because they don't – the players don't want their guy fired. I wouldn't think that they want their guy fired. So I feel like the play will probably improve just because the program and the coach are going to be, like, on the back, like they're going to be burning. So I feel like at some point the play is going to improve, and if it doesn't, then I don't really see them being a winning team. I feel like some of these toss-up games they're just going to have to win, and they're going to know they have to win. So I feel like they're going to find some way to pull those off. But if they can't get it together, I don't really expect them to be a 7-5 team. I probably would expect them to be like 5-7, 6-6 at the best if they can't figure it out.
Yeah. And for me, when I go through these predictions, the first thing I do, I don't go week to week. I go, here's a win, here's a loss. So I go ahead and I get the finalities out of the way. And then after that, then I look at what I would call a swing game. And for Florida, it was easy for me to find or for Florida State, sorry, it's easy for me to find the losses. It was easy to find some of those non-con wins, but almost every other game was a swing game. And so I think you probably split those. It's I don't really know what to expect. I think they're being patient with him. I don't know if it's their guy. I mean, you have two first year coaches at the other Florida schools, and I think both those programs are already ahead of where Florida State is. And so I think that pressure just against your peers, because obviously you play in the ACC, but you recruit out of Florida. And so I mean, you look at A&M and Texas. They don't play each other right now, but they're always compared in terms of where they're at program wise, because it's your next door neighbor. And so I think that with the other Florida schools going on the up, I think that Norvell ends up on the hot seat. I don't really expect anything big out of him this year. I got him at 6-6.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so next we have Louisville. When we actually have some pretty big differences amongst us. So Trey, you got him at 7-5. So say some thought process.
I have them going 75. I mean, they have the standard games that they should win, like Syracuse, UCF, South Florida, Boston College, James Madison. There's two swing games that could be, which I just have them winning. It's Virginia and Pitt. I have them beating Pitt at home. I feel like Louisville could be a tough place to play, and I feel like Louisville will come out with that win. Their first loss, though, I have is Florida State at home. I just don't think there's much difference in between those teams, and I feel like Florida State can go into Louisville and come out with the win. And then I had them losing to, like I said, the three best teams in the ACC: Wake Forest, Clemson, and North Carolina State. And then I have them losing to Kentucky at Kentucky. That's a rivalry game. Everybody knows that is, and it's just harder to go on the road for a rivalry game and pull out the win.
All right, Rob, you got him at 6-6.
I do, and pretty much my philosophy with the ACC is, someone's got to win it, and most teams from the SEC and the Big Ten typically win all their non-conference games in general. I have Louisville going 2-2 in non-conference games. They're going to lose to. Actually, I have them 1-3. I have them losing it at UCF as well. But I see them losing to Kentucky. They're playing Pitt out of the Big Ten, Pitt from the Coastal Division. But I have them winning all games at home except one and losing all games on the road except for one. So I just see them being middle of the ground. They're just, I just not impressed with them right now. Vegas has them at 6.5. I don't know much about them, but that's mainly because they just don't get a lot of press and they're just not very impressive. So I got them sitting at 6-6, 4-4 in conference, just at middle of the road.
All right, Quentin.
I have Louisville at 5-7, and in my opinion, I feel like they have one of the harder schedules in the ACC. They have Pitt. They have Pitt out of the other division, and they have Wake Forest, Clemson, and NC State. I actually have them beating Wake Forest only because I feel like if Sam Hartman, if he is back by that time, but if he misses 5 or 6 games up to that point, it's probably they have them at home, and if he misses 5 or 6 games at that point, I feel like Wake Forest offense will not be as smooth as they would like it to be. So I actually have them dropping that game, and I don't know. I don't see them beating Florida State. I have them dropping the Boston College game. I actually have them dropping the Virginia game at Virginia. I don't think they're going to go over there and go into Virginia and win. And then, like I said, I had them losing to Pitt, Clemson, and NC State and Kentucky. I mean, when you're playing Kentucky, it's probably one of the better teams in the SEC East, and I don't see them going to Kentucky and winning that game.
All right. I have Louisville 8-4. And I think the two biggest differences that I have between y'all is I'm a little lower, Quentin. I'm a little lower on Florida State than you are. And so I have them winning that game. I have them beating Virginia because I'm a little lower on Virginia. But then with the Wake Forest, it's just that I had them at 7-5 before, but it's just hard for me to predict a whole lot more out of Wake Forest when you have such great quarterback play. There's such a question mark. And so I think with that Louisville team, I think 7-5 is way more likely than 9-3. But I had to move some wins around in order to be more realistic with I think what Wake can do this year. And then now that puts us on to NC State, who is personally one of my biggest sleeper teams this year. And I'm really excited about what they're going to do. They beat Clemson last year, and they're up there in the conversation for the ACC championship. So, Trey, you got them at 10-2. Tell me what you think.
I have them 10-2. I just think they're the best team in the ACC. The only two losses I have them losing are Florida State and Clemson. Florida State and Wake Forest. I just feel like they could lose that Florida State game because they're coming off the week where they play Clemson, and I feel like that's going to be a really close game. I just feel like their body's going to be tired. It's going to be a really difficult game to win, so I feel like they could drop that Florida State game. And then I have them losing to Wake Forest. Before I had this list or my record prediction before we found out the information about Sam Hartman, so that's still subject to change. But I thought that Sam Hartman could go into North Carolina State and lead Wake Forest to the win there.
They also play later in the year, so he could be back.
Yeah.
All right, Rob, you got him at 9-3, so you're a little lower on them than the rest of us.
I've got them at 9-3. I have them winning a three-way tiebreaker out of the Atlantic and beating Miami in the ACC championship. I have them highly ranked nationally. After 10 games, I have them 9-1. Their only loss is at Clemson. But then I have them losing the last two games, forcing that three-way tie, losing at Louisville and at North Carolina. So I think they're a good team. They were pretty good last year. I think they're getting better. I think they're gonna compete in all those games, even the three that they lose. And I think, fortunately for them, they're just gonna. I've gone down through the tiebreakers. I think they'll be higher ranked than Clemson and Wake Forest, and will end up winning that tiebreaker and representing the Atlantic in the ACC championship.
All right, Quentin, you're next.
So I have NC State going 11-1. I think that 10-2 is probably more likely, but if I were to have to put the money on, I mean, I'm not gonna try and predict like a loss to a team I don't think is less. I mean, I do have them losing to Florida State, but I think that if that game plays out like I think it's gonna be, it's gonna be like close game down the stretch. I think Florida State's gonna pull it out just because it's gonna mean more to Florida State than it probably will to NC State. And also, I feel like NC State is a very weak schedule. Not very good non-conference games. I mean, they play pretty much all FCS except UConn and Tech. I mean, Tech is one of the worst teams in the Big 12. So I definitely don't expect them to drop that game. And then they don't really have that. I mean, I could see them losing at North Carolina. If I had to add another loss, I'd probably put it there at North Carolina, or I don't know if they have Clemson at home, but I think if I had to bet, that's what it probably would move that other loss there.
It's on the road.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're going to be good, but if I had to go back, I probably would make them 10-2 rather than 11-1. But I'm not gonna try and predict a loss to a lesser opponent. That I feel like.
All right. Well, I have some similarities and some differences. Trey, I do not think that NC State is the best team in the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
However, a point that Quentin touched on is they easily have the easiest schedule. They avoid Notre Dame in the whatever you'd call it, the affiliation, and there. If you take the JP poll, the Josh Pate poll, shout out Late Kick with Josh Pate. Go
the only
subscribe.
poll that matters.
Yeah, the only podcast that matters other than this one. And according to him and his model, the NC State only plays one other top 25 ranked JP team, and that is Clemson.
Power rankings, based on power rankings.
Yeah, based on power rankings. And to go in a little more depth with that, it takes into account how good a team is, not necessarily on how hard their schedule is. So a team like Mississippi State, who's a middle of the road SEC West team, it's a lot better in terms of talent and roster than a middle of the road Pac-12 team. And so when it takes into that stuff into account, you might have a Wake Forest who's ranked in the AP poll, but with the loss of their quarterback and kind of uncertainties with the rest of the roster, you have a lot of holes. You don't know what to expect, so that power ranking adjusts for that, and so it shows more of a true ranking rather than per conference, And so
Mathis, instead of the coaches poll or the writers poll, it doesn't punish teams for losing to teams that are better.
Yeah.
If you're the 11th best team in the nation and you play the top 10, an 0-11 record is not a negative thing. It is as expected. And they expect you to beat the other 120.
Like if Notre Dame loses to Ohio State, Notre Dame's they're not supposed to win that game.
Yeah.
Because Ohio State's, we'll get to them in a later episode.
Of course, that's not the world we live in. We live by the coaches poll, the writers poll, but.
Yeah, but we don't. We can choose to avoid the matrix, go into the real world, and we listen to Josh Pate, not the Associated Press. But all that to say, I do have them beating Clemson. I'm not sure who's the better team at this moment. I'd probably lean NC State because of the quarterback play and the defense. And they, like I said earlier, they return head coach, both coordinators, and a quarterback. And so, one second, I'm getting a call from one of the team members. Everyone else is on.
Oh, wait. Like, you and Quentin just froze.
Yeah, Quentin is still frozen. You both froze on us, and Trey and I kept going.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I think Quentin probably hung up. He's calling back in.
Can anyone hear me?
I can.
Okay. Technical
difficulties.
You're
fine now.
I'm so sorry about that. There's been a storm.
Yeah.
But all that to say, what's the last thing you heard?
The last thing, we were talking about the power rankings, and I had said, unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. We live with the coaches poll and the writers poll.
Yeah, and I said, but we choose to avoid the matrix and listen to Josh Pate, not the Associated Press.
That I did not hear.
Okay. All right. So I have NC State beating Clemson. I'm not sure who you can say is the better team. I think NC State's going into that game a little better off because if I'm correct, I think that even without the quarterback, I think that Sam Hartman would bring in. I'm so sorry about the technical difficulties.
That's all right.
Is he back in now? All right.
He is now.
Okay, so all that to say, I think that Clemson's going to go into that game a little beat up. I think they play at Wake, And so they're going to be coming back home. NC State's going to be ready for them. And I think they're going to win that game, but I think I have them losing to Wake later on. I think that Sam Hartman might be back. I hate to predict it. That really threw a wrench into this whole division for me, because a lot of my Wake Forest predictions were riding on him carrying that Wake Forest offense.
Mm-hmm.
But I got them at 10-2. I agree. I kind of got them winning that tie and punching their ticket to the ACC championship. And if we want to move on a little quicker, because at this point we've talked about a lot of the games so far, and so you've heard some of these. We don't want to keep repeating ourselves. If we want to run through Syracuse, Trey, what do you think?
I have them going 3-9, man. I just don't think they're very good.
Yeah. What games do you have them winning?
I have them winning UConn, Virginia, and Wagner.
All right. Rob, you got them at 4-8?
I have them at 4-8, and fortunately for them, they get to play non-conference games.
Yeah. Quentin?
I have them at 3-9 as well.
Games? Just the non-con?
Yeah, pretty much.
See, it's weird. I don't really think that poorly of Syracuse. I
do have them beating Virginia, actually.
I think I might have that too if I check for a second.
I'm beating Virginia as well.
I mean, they play Notre Dame. It's definitely not a win.
Yeah, I have them beating Notre Dame. No, I have them. I have them beating Virginia and Pitt in conference.
Upset alert.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a bold prediction, man.
I'm a little lower on Pitt, man, and I'll get on my soapbox with a lot of these transfers later on, and so y'all hear a lot more from that. I don't want to beat a dead horse while it's still alive. I'll kill it later. I got them at 4-8. I don't think that poorly of them, but as I'm going through my schedules, especially going through division, I started at the top and just worked my way down, and I just had them. I had them losing a lot more games as a lock, more than the wins I had as a lock. So if they split, I have them at 4-8.
Mm-hmm.
And
I show them at 4-8, but I actually have them at 3-9. Where I had Syracuse and Wake Forest both winning the game against each other. So
okay.
They're actually 1-7 in conference and 3-9 overall. So
okay.
I have them at 3-2 starting the season and then losing the last 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
I'll be looking forward to watch them in March.
This is an incredibly an incredibly cannibalistic conference. I mean, all these teams could end up 5-3 in conference.
Yeah.
It's just not all of them, but I mean, I think a lot more are going to end up at the bell curve than they do on either end.
Especially on the Atlantic side. They're just very even. You know, I don't know about you guys, but I have the winner being 5-3, and that's really just one win.
Yeah.
You know, better than 500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we've already talked about Wake Forest probably more than we probably have already talked about Wake Forest more than we talked about Syracuse, and we have not singled out Wake Forest yet. And so, Trey, you got him at 10-2. You said that was previous Sam Hartman injury. What would you change? What do you think is a realistic expectation?
I see them if Sam Hartman doesn't play at all this year, just going worst case scenario. I can see them going 8-4 at the worst, just because they have such an easy schedule. I don't see them dropping games to like Liberty and Vanderbilt and Army. They're just winnable games, and the ACC is very top heavy in my opinion. They have really good teams at the top and really bad teams at the bottom. So I would have them losing to North Carolina State instead of beating them at North Carolina State, and then I'd have them losing to probably Louisville.
Yeah. Rob, 9-3.
Of course, I don't pay attention to the individual players like you guys do, but I have them 7-0. I have NC State 9-1. I think they're gonna. I think they're good teams. They're gonna tie for the Atlantic Division champion, but I think they're just like NC State. They're gonna fall off towards the end of the season. They're gonna lose. I have them losing on the road to Louisville, on the road to NC State, losing at home to North Carolina, and then fortunately for them, they get to save their season by playing Syracuse and Duke. So I have them at 9-3, a three-way tie with Clemson and NC State. I have them all going 1-1 against each other, 1-1, 1-0 at home, and 0-1 on the road. All three of those, but I have them losing in the tiebreaker to NC State.
All right, Quentin, me and you tend to agree more on this as it looks. You got them at 7-5.
Yeah, I think that if the injury is as bad as they say it is, and that he is out for a significant amount of time, so like I think that they catch Clemson early in the schedule, week 5 or week 4. They catch Clemson week 4, and then they go right to Florida. They get Clemson at home. But I feel like if they don't have Sam Hartman, that's going to be a very difficult game to win. And then they go to Florida State, and I think that if that's his first game back, maybe his second game back, I feel like that's a very losable game for them if he is not 100% in the game at that point.
Yeah.
And then I have them dropping to Louisville, NC State, and North Carolina later in the season. So
Yeah.
pretty straightforward.
I was a little lower on Wake Forest to begin with, even coming in. I had them at 8-4 before, and I just think that last year was a real fluky year in the ACC. Like, Pitt and Wake Forest kind of came out of nowhere, and I expect a little bit of a return of Clemson. I think for them, 11-1 is more likely than 9-3. And for Wake, if you're already having quarterback issues before the season starts and you don't know where you're going really, then I think with what I expect to be the rise of NC State, I expect Louisville to be very good, and I expect Clemson to have somewhat of a resurgence. And so I think that they're kind of just a victim of circumstance this year. And so that actually wraps up all of the ACC Atlantic. And so we can move on to the Coastal if y'all want. You all ready?
Yeah, looks like we tend to agree more on this division than.
Yeah.
I feel like we can just go ahead and knock out the first 2 teams, man.
Yeah,
All right, yeah. So we're just going to.
I think it'll be a lot easier to talk about the games they're going to win.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the Duke and Georgia Tech wins. Quentin, what games do you have Duke winning?
I have them beating Temple and North Carolina A&T.
Rob, do you have any objections?
So, I have them going 0-8 in conference, 2-10 overall. Same 2 wins as Quentin.
All right, Trey, same thing?
Nope.
Trey is the Kansas Jayhawks.
Nope. I just feel good on that one, honestly.
Rock
Do you
chalk,
think they're
baby.
going to win that one?
I
That's a homer pick for Trey.
Nope.
Homer pick.
Homer alert.
Now, that's the game I would watch in March.
Yeah, same here. We did watch it. No, we didn't. That was North Carolina.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not a basketball guy. That's Trey's thing, Trey and Quentin's thing.
Hey, I do have them losing to Georgia Tech, so Georgia Tech, there you go.
It's only conference wins for me.
I'm same here.
Hey,
Go ahead.
but
Duke are the only two wins they have for me.
I think that Mike Elko could be turning something around at Duke. I just don't see it this year. And I'll be honest, we're from Texas, so we don't really
This
look out.
basketball school, man.
We don't really follow Duke or Georgia Tech closely. Obviously, we'll know more about Miami or North Carolina or Pitt, who are more on the national landscape. But we're not. It's easy for me to just find the losses on those schedules, and I think that's easy to say for Georgia Tech too.
Being mentioned as transfers to STC potentially.
What's that?
They're being talked as transfers to SEC, Miami, and North Carolina.
Yeah. No, we're going towards super conferences, so kiss your traditions goodbye.
That'll be a future podcast.
Yeah, we'll talk
Yeah.
about that in the off season.
Yeah. That's two demerits for Mathis.
Yep.
We don't talk about the O on this podcast.
Yeah, the season. So then we go to Georgia Tech. I think it's pretty unanimous that we have one of those wins coming against Duke. And
Yeah.
then the other one is, let me guess, Western Carolina. I mean, look at that
Yeah,
out
I
of
have to
conference
beat Ole Miss.
schedule. You schedule UCF, one of the
What?
best G5 teams, and you schedule Ole Miss. And then you play Georgia at the end of the year.
They have the hardest schedule in the ACC, in my opinion.
Yeah, and for no reason. And yeah, that guy might got to get packing pretty soon. Don't have his name off the top of my head. Let's talk about something more fun. Miami. Trey, start us off.
I have them going 10-2. I feel like they have a pretty weak schedule. Overall, they have 3 out of their 4 non-conference games are pretty easy wins. The only team that I have them losing to is Texas A&M in non-conference games, just because Texas A&M I feel like is a significantly better team. And then I have them losing to Clemson at Clemson, and those are the only 2 losses that I have for them.
Okay. Rob?
And then 10-2 as well. Obviously, losing to Texas A&M in week 3. I have them representing the Coastal Division. I have them winning an upset game, considered an upset game at Clemson, but I have them faltering on the road to Virginia Tech. I just have a feeling about Virginia Tech and Sandman. It's going to be a late night game. And
Coming
it's
right
gonna
off
be a
what
night
game?
Do what?
And who do they play the week before?
North Carolina.
And that's why that is the snake bite game. That's what I'd like to call it.
Yep.
All right, Quentin, you got him at 9-3.
Who's your other loss?
I have them dropping the A&M game, the North Carolina game, and the Clemson game.
Okay.
They, very weak. They managed to only catch Clemson. Out of like the 3 teams I would consider like the better teams in the Atlantic division, they only managed to catch Clemson. So they missed NC State in. But they that's probably their hardest game on the schedule, and it comes at the very end of the schedule. So I feel like I have them winning 5 in a row before that, so I feel like at some point they're gonna drop one. But then I have them coming back against Pitt in week 12 or week 13.
I have them real similar. I think this is a very talented team. I think Tyler Van Dyke is probably the best quarterback in the conference. He's amazingly talented. They just got Mario Cristobal. And I'm going to dig into my bag of worms a little bit here. I'll talk about it with Texas. I'll talk about it with USC, OU, whoever it may be. I am not super keen on teams that just reload because I think there's a lot of team chemistry. And so, I mean, what did that Oregon team go last year? Were they 10-2, 9-3, right around the same range? And so it's just hard for me to see that a team with a brand new coach just walks in there and spits out a 10-win team when you play A&M and Clemson. I think that there's some hiccup on that road. And so I agree with Rob. I think that hiccup is Virginia Tech. And so that gives them 3 losses. You got A&M, who I think is just a better team. Not a guaranteed win, but I would pencil that in a pencil with a loss. I think Clemson at the end of the year, they should have their crap together. And if they don't, then I don't know what I'm talking about with Clemson. And my whole me picking one game wrong for Miami is the least of my concerns. And so if I got them at 10-2 at the base, I think they lose one more game than that. I have them playing NC State in the championship game. If I don't have it in front of me, but I think that's what it is because they have the win over North Carolina, and those are the 2 teams I have highest in this division. And so I got them at 9-3, and I think that's a great year. I think Mario Cristobal is a great recruiter, and so got them at 9-3. I think they have a great future. They're going to have a great recruiting class, but for now, let's go ahead and move on to North Carolina. Trey, you have them at 8-4.
I have them at 8-4. I have them losing 3 straight games to Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, and Miami. That's their hardest 3-game stretch amongst the season. Notre Dame, that's going to be a tough game for anybody to play, even though I'm not too keen on Notre Dame. I feel like Black's going to be sore. It's going to be a really confusing week for them, just coming off that loss from Notre Dame. So I feel like they can drop one Virginia Tech. And I just don't see themselves catching themselves. It's Miami at Miami. I feel like that's a pretty tough place to play historically. But I do see themselves going into Duke and winning that and turning things around. And I have them ending the year losing to North Carolina State, which is just a better team.
Rob?
I have them at 8-4 also. I had them losing to Notre Dame. That's going to be a tough game. I can't have them losing 3 games in a row, especially the first 2 being at home. That's why I got them winning against Virginia Tech because I have them losing at Miami. So I have them also losing to Pitt, who I think is going to compete in the Coastal Division. I have them coming in second place overall behind Miami. But instead of Virginia Tech, I have them losing on the road to Virginia. So I see them 5-3 in conference, 8-4 overall. And coming actually at North Carolina third overall behind Pitt. So I just, that Virginia Tech game, I just, if I had them losing that, they'd be losing 3 in a row, 2 at home. I know that Notre Dame game is going to be tough for them. It's going to be a tough loss. I just don't see them losing again the following week at home.
Yeah. Quentin?
I have them 9-3. I have them dropping the Notre Dame game, the Pitt game, and the NC State game. I just think that they have a good enough roster to compete at a high level, and I think that Mac Brown's a good enough coach that they're not gonna string together multiple they're not gonna have a bad strip. I think my games that I have them starting off 3-0, then losing, and then I have them losing, and they win 3, and then they lose 1, and then they win 3, and they lose 1. So I feel like Matt Brown is the type of coach. I mean, he's ready to take this one championship. I feel like he's the type of guy who can. Yeah, Rob loves that.
All right.
When was A&M's last title? 19.
39, I think.
No, yeah.
Yeah, I think that one dude with the little mustache was tootling around in Europe at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but I feel like Matt Brown's a good enough coach that he's going to put together solid stretches for that team. So I feel like the 9-3 I feel is comfortable for them.
I'm right in the same place as Quentin. 2 years ago, in North Carolina, had a great year, and it was early in that tenure. And so last year, huge expectations. And they definitely under-delivered. I think it was 3 or 4 games into the year, they're coming off a loss. And Mac Brown talked to the media, talked to his players, and said, all right, can we get to work now? Now that we don't have these crazy expectations on us? And so, I mean, a lot of people had him in dark horse for winning the conference last year, and I think they ended up 7-5. And I think that last year probably put them on a reset. I think they're going to have solid play from their positions. I would probably say Drake May is going to be the starting quarterback. You obviously have a loss because you're losing Sam Howell to the NFL.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think this schedule is somewhat favorable for you. Let me get it pulled up. You play Notre Dame, you play Miami, and you play NC State. And I don't really see any other game on that schedule where you should be a dog. I mean, there's probably going to be another game or two where you're a dog. But, I mean, is it Pitt? Is it Wake Forest? You have a tough-ish non-con schedule. You play Appalachian State. That's not an easy one. And then I think you play Georgia State after that. And those are back-to-back on the road. Those aren't easy, but they're manageable. And so if I'm wrong about that, then I'm wrong about some of the rest of them. I mean, if they're losing those games, they have a lot more trouble on their hands than what we're predicting. And so, based off that,
2021 was a good year for North Carolina.
Yeah, didn't they make the ACC championship?
I don't remember that, but I do know that they lost the January 2nd game, bowl game.
That was to A&M.
Yeah.
If you haven't guessed, this is my uncle who went to A&M. So just wait till our SEC predictions when you see 14 conference wins for A&M, and then they're only playing 8 conference games. So I don't really know. That's the kind of stuff you can expect.
It just means more, and it means every win means 2.
Yeah, but I just think Pitt has a worse year, so I think that if you're looking at the polls, and I'd put an up arrow next to North Carolina and a down arrow next to some of these other schools, and so I think they're gonna pass them up a little bit, and so that moves us straight into the team I was just talking about, Pitt. Trey, you got them after winning the conference last year. You got them at 7-5.
Yeah, like you said, I just feel like they're on a downward trend. They lost Jordan Addison to USC, which is by far their best player. They lost Kenny Pickett to the NFL, which was their 1-2 punch. So I feel like that team's going to have to find Kenny, and I just don't think it's going to be this year. I have them losing to Tennessee, winning the next 3, losing to Virginia Tech, losing to Louisville at Louisville, losing to North Carolina at North Carolina, and then finish off the year losing to Miami at Miami.
All right, Rob, 9-3. So you expect a drop off, but not as bad.
I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year. I have them losing at home to Tennessee in week 2. I have them losing on the road 2 of the last 3 games, Virginia and Miami. I have them coming in second place in the Coastal Division. They won the whole thing last year in the ACC. I don't think they're as good as that, but I don't see them falling off that much. I have them at 9-3 overall.
Okay, Quentin, you got them at 9-3 also.
I do, and I think that if you look at the schedule, they play first two games are West Virginia and Tennessee. I have them dropping the Tennessee game, but I feel like those games are just games that I have them beating West Virginia, but West Virginia's a good team. They're a good quarterback play, most likely with JT Daniels. I feel like those two games are gonna make them better when it comes down to the end of the year when they play these toss up games like North Carolina. I have them dropping to Miami and Virginia Tech. I think Virginia Tech is just kind of be like one of those teams that are just they play on the Washington Commanders. It looks like I don't know what the team is, and then they play Rhode Island, Georgia Tech. I feel like
Western Michigan.
What'd you say?
Western Michigan.
Yeah, I feel like Virginia Tech. I feel like after that 3-game stretch, they might get comfortable. After they survived the West Virginia and Tennessee game, they don't come out. I mean, they're banged up. They have the 3 games they survived, but then they have West Virginia and might just be popped right in their face, and they don't know what to do. So I feel like, but then I have them going on a pretty good stretch until Miami and losing at Miami in rivalry week.
I have them at 8-4, and so obviously I think they're going to lose that Tennessee game, and I think they're going to lose that Miami game, and then I think they're going to lose North Carolina. I think North Carolina is just the better team. When you have a drop off like they had last year, they lost at least one coordinator I know of. Head coach was saying some stuff. Oh, I didn't like how much we threw the ball. Dude, you had a Heisman finalist and a Biletnikoff Award winner. And so what you were doing is working. You fire that coordinator. You lose your quarterback. Bring another one in the transfer portal. And I just don't know what kind of production you're going to get for the receivers. You have Slovis at quarterback now. When you have these transfer quarterbacks, you don't really know what to expect because what really comes into play, you see this with Ewers, you've seen this with other guys too. Caleb Williams might be an issue, but probably not because he has the same coach. So, but they have to learn a new playbook. And as a quarterback, you're the general of that offense. And so when that offense was kind of Pitt's thing last year, and that's what they rode to the ACC championship on, and you have a guy who doesn't know it as well, and you don't have as much talent in the playmaking arena, and you have teams who I think have surpassed you a little bit. I think it's hard to get some of that chemistry with receivers early on, and I think it's hard to get a hold of the playbook that early. I'm not huge on these transfer-built rosters. I'm not saying that's what Pitt is, but I think they lost a lot, and I think some teams who didn't change as much got better. And so I think they lose that North Carolina game. And then I think they're pretty discouraged after that. Because after that, then they'll play Syracuse. They might take that game after a close loss or maybe even not a close loss. It'd be easy to overlook a team who hasn't had a great year. And so I think that's a prime snakebite game like I coined earlier. And I think you lose that game. I think you end up 8-4. And that's not a bad year per Pitt standards compared to last year, obviously it is. But I think that's the most likely outcome. And then
there's one game, guys, on Pitt's schedule that we failed to really jump into, and that is in week 1.
West Virginia, I just think that's a win. I don't know what kind of.
Well, no, I think that's an old rivalry being brought back. I think they call that.
That is going to be that's most likely to be a dogfight.
I have them winning it, but only because it's at home. But that's an old rivalry. I think they haven't played in 15 or 20 years.
Yeah, I understand the rivalry, but here's the thing: a lot of the players who are actually going to be playing the games haven't. You have another transfer quarterback, JT Daniels, on the other side of the field. And I just think when you look at it, that's a game Pitt should win. You're at home.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You have the better roster, and I think you have the better coach. But I think they ride the momentum of that win, they get a little comfortable. Technically, that's a neutral site game. I think that's being played in Pitts. I think that's being played at the Steelers Stadium.
But that's
Is that where they play?
But I'm pretty sure that's where Pitt plays every week.
I didn't know that. Obviously, I'm not from up there, so I don't want to be disrespectful to any Pitt fans watching, but I don't really care.
Nobody wants the games.
Nah, I don't really care. And I think you lose to Tennessee the next week.
Definitely, because they're from the SEC.
Yep. It just
I'm probably higher on Tennessee than some of y'all.
Tennessee's going to be good this year. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
We're very high on them.
All right. We're an hour in. Let's go ahead and finish out with these last two, the Virginia schools. So,
you know,
Trey, take it away.
You know, they're a pretty average team. They got pretty average records for me. I have Virginia going 6-6 and Virginia Tech going 7-5. I have them losing to all the primary good teams, the ACC. The only games that I have them losing to that are out of conference is Illinois, and I have an upset. I have Liberty beating Virginia Tech.
Really?
Yep.
I don't know about that.
We're going to be like abnormally quiet when someone has a really, really bad take.
Hey,
Yeah.
I don't really care.
I must not recognize Liberty's logo. Is that week 11?
I think so.
Yeah.
Say it again? Okay.
Like that. As a bye week, but.
So we're doing both Virginia schools at the same time?
No, we'll go one at a time.
I have to.
Rob, take it away.
Robert.
I have Trey or me.
You. Trey just talked.
I have Virginia. I have them 8-4. Have them losing to Illinois, Miami, and on the road, Virginia Tech. I have them 5-3 in conference. They have a very weak non-conference schedule. Richmond and what is that? Is that Old Dominion?
Yeah.
And whoever they're playing in week 11.
Liberty.
I don't know. In Liberty playing Virginia Tech.
Oh, never mind. I heard it wrong then.
They're playing Coastal Carolina week 11.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I mean, I have them just slightly, both of them actually just a little bit above average. Both going 8-4, both going 5-3 in conference. Just they're going to be there, but they're not going to have much impact on who wins.
All right, Quentin.
Are we doing both at the same time?
Just go Virginia, and then we'll hit Virginia Tech last.
Okay.
I don't want to be disrespectful.
I do.
I have Virginia going 6-6 as well. I actually have them losing to Illinois in week 2. So
I do too.
Me too.
And,
I do as well.
yeah, but I mean, there's not many
Fighting Illini.
games that are really. I mean, rivalry week, they play at Virginia Tech, and I feel like the atmosphere. I feel like probably be too much for them. I don't think that they're. Yeah, I don't think that they're that great of a roster. So.
Yeah. They got a brand new coach.
I just don't think that they're.
First year coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got them at 6-6 for a lot of the same reasons y'all pointed out. I kind of got them winning a lot of home games, losing a lot of away games. That's actually not true. I have them losing 3 in a row at home. But I mean, that's your toughest stretch.
Miami, North Carolina, Pitt.
Yeah.
That's correct.
I just think first year head coach, you're coming in with a lot of inexperience. I don't know what the situation is going to look like roster-wise. I think they're pretty weak on the O-line. And I could be wrong, and that could be their strong suit. but I know something's going on with their O-line. It's either really good or really bad, and the stuff I seen was months ago, and I can't remember. So that's all I'm going to say about that. If we want to go ahead and move on to Virginia Tech, who already said their predictions. It's on the screen right now, so everyone can see. They've been able to see this whole time, but Trey, you got them at 7-5.
Yeah, I've already said my losses.
Quentin, what did you talk about it? I know Rob did.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I also got.
I have them at 8-4, and I'm not gonna lie, it's a very homer pick. I do like the Hokies, so there might be a little bit of bias, but I have them winning some questionable games, so like the North Carolina.
I think they're kind of a snake bite team this year. I think they're catching people at the right time. They're
very frisky to me.
They're a frisky team.
I feel like they might pull out a 70-yard touchdown, first play of the game type team. You don't even know what happened. You play and then you're down 7 going into the game.
Yeah, they're a team you might overlook just a little bit.
Yeah, very frisky, and I'm homer pick. So
yeah, eventually.
Virginia Tech ruining Miami's perfect record in the ACC.
I do too. I do have them dropping that game.
We might need to, in the offseason, we might need to eventually talk about some of our favorite teams that we're not affiliated with. Like, obviously, Rob, his favorite team's A&M. But we need to talk about some teams from places we're not at that we just have some sort of love towards. Like, we're a little soft on them.
There's a team that I have some sort of hatred for no specific reason. I just don't really like them. They have no name, but everyone knows who we're talking about.
I'm Fighting Irish.
They appeared on the ACC 4 different times, didn't they?
Yes, they did, but
it's not the one you're talking about.
Yeah, no, yeah.
They went to a team at one time, and everyone thought they were back, right?
The boys out in Austin?
That's messed up, man. That's messed up. We'll talk about them later. We're going to save. This is an ACC episode. And also, it's been the first episode of the Storm the Field podcast. And
how appropriate that we did it during a storm.
Yeah, storm the field.
Yeah.
And we just started this podcast because we love college football. If you stayed to the end of this video, then we're super happy that you stayed. We really appreciate it. And stay around. We'll have other predictions. We're gonna be doing about 2 podcasts during the week for the season, like kind of a analysis video early in the week talking about previous, and then we'll get to the predictions either on Thursday or Friday. We'll have to get that sorted out around school and stuff like that. But
Mathis, I have a prediction.
What's up?
I have a prediction that once the season gets started, we're going to start ragging on each other pretty bad about some predictions we made that did not go very well.
Oh yeah, we're absolutely going to be looking back at these. We'll probably take a little look back for the non-con games. So we'll probably do that after week 3. And at that point we'll make our new predictions for our conference championship games and what we think is going to happen going into conference play. Obviously, there'll be some games that happen before then, but we'll get to them later on, kind of have more of a feel for what these teams are going to have, especially the teams that have a little more unknown to them. And so we'll get to those, and we'll have our predictions. And at the end of the year, at the end of the season, we'll come back and we'll look at a lot of these and see how poorly they aged.
Hey, Mathis, what's that flag behind your head?
So that flag right there, I know it's backwards to those who are watching on the podcast, but it says Saturdays are for steak, and that is because we go over to my uncle Rob's house and we grill steaks and watch football every Saturday. Even in the off season. we go over there and we watch reruns of the old games, like he has in the background right now on his TV. But yeah,
and maybe we'll do a little bit of a live cast at one time while we're watching Saturday football.
Yeah, it's all what anyone's interested in. We're here to share the game that we love and with people who also love it, and it'd be awesome to have some sort of community. You can reach us at any of our socials. We have an email, Instagram, and TikTok, and Twitter. And so we'll have that there. You can hit us in the DMs or in the emails.
Yep. Follow me.
If you have,
Followers.
if you have any questions for us, what's
I
that?
actually have a word from our unofficial sponsor.
Okay, yeah. We'll get to the unofficial sponsors another time. This episode's running a little long. I'll tell you right now, I think that we're probably just talking to ourselves, but we'll see how it goes. I had a great time. We will be back very soon. We will have this full podcast. We'll have this full podcast posted. We'll also break it up by division, and once we get into the season, we'll have different segments, and we'll cut those up as well, just in case anyone has any specific things that they want to see, like any specific topics. And so that's all from us here at the Storm the Field podcast. Y'all have a great rest of your day.